Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Hello, listeners of Steering Change. My name is Kelsey Hipkin, and I will be your host today. On September 26th, the AMTA is holding its first ever Industry Innovations EXPO in Edmonton. How's that for alliteration? Exploring the forefront of low and zero emission, electric, and alternative fuel commercial vehicles. The event will also include the official launch of the AMTA-led Alberta Zero Emission Truck Electrification Collaboration, or AZTEC. To speak on those and more AMTA industry advancement programs and initiatives, I am joined today by Terri Johnson, AMTA Manager, Industry Advancement, and Erin Horb, Technology Advisor and Hydrogen Specialist. And remember, friends, stay tuned when this episode wraps up for the next segment of AMTA's Best Big Rig Movie Ever bracket with Rob Destry and myself. Terri, Erin, welcome.
Good morning.
Terri, I know this is your second appearance on the Steering Change podcast, but refresh our listeners and tell us a bit about yourself and your work with AMTA.
So I am Manager of Industry Advancement, which you've already shared. We work with emerging technologies, pretty much anything that's new and shiny, testing, trialing, and demoing it for industry. A lot of data acquisition is done in our department. We're using data for trials. We're using data to support carrier business decisions and to support internal activities with AMTA.
Thank you, Terri. And Erin, thank you. This is your first time on Steering Change. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work with AMTA.
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, I'm a technology advisor and hydrogen specialist. I work on Terri's team, and I've been with AMTA since October of 2023, so I'm fairly new. My background is in atmospheric science, but I really like focusing on communications and sharing the story of what we've been doing in industry advancement. So I really like to live in the world between science and communication.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. So, ladies, let's start off. If you could tell me, what can people expect from this inaugural Innovation Expo in September?
So they're going to come and they're going to have a great big learning opportunity. We're really looking at this event as being an opportunity for carriers in Alberta to understand how far the ecosystem is really advancing with alternative energy vehicles. We'll be showcasing fuel cell electric trucks, battery electric trucks, hydrogen diesel dual trucks, and CNG vehicles that are all supporting operations here in Alberta and really allowing the carriers to see, touch, feel, and understand what's going on in their community with supporting their industry.
I'm going to interrupt you for a sec, Terri. Can you tell me what CNG is?
Yeah, compressed natural gas. So there's all kinds of little acronyms. That's why you've got your Alberta Electrification Collaboration, or AZTEC, as we call it. So with research and innovation, there's lots of acronyms because there's just too many things. Fuel cell electric vehicles are known as FCEVs. Battery electric vehicles are known as BEVs. Hydrogen diesel dual fuel, I think I made up my own acronym. It's H2DF. And then CNG is compressed natural gas vehicles. And these vehicles are going to help with emissions reductions. Some of them are zero emissions. So you've got your fuel cell electric vehicles and your battery electric vehicles, which will support zero emissions from the tailpipe. And then you've got your hydrogen diesel dual fuel and your CNG, which will help carriers and fleets with emission reduction mandates and reducing their emissions that are coming from the vehicles. So at this expo, we'll have all of the OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, I got that one, to be able to talk directly with carriers and fleets about the vehicles, the operational benefits, the limitations, and how their vehicle supports carrier operations and long haul.
Awesome. Anything to add on that one, Erin?
Yeah, so that was great, Terri. I think one of the other benefits of this expo is that we've been able to convene a wide variety of stakeholders within the ecosystem. So beyond just the vehicles, we will have the hydrogen producers present so they can speak to making the hydrogen in Alberta and transporting it to fueling stations. We'll have charging station experts there as well, some insurance experts to speak on different considerations when thinking about insuring these new zero-emission and low-emission vehicles. We'll also have greenhouse gas accounting specialists, carriers, the students, and emergency planning, as well as many different levels of government. So a whole suite of different experts will be there and available to talk to the different components of this whole ecosystem. So I think it's going to be really great.
Yeah,
And the
something.
ecosystem you guys mentioned, it sounds like we have the whole like nose to tail, everything that you need to start right up to getting the vehicles on the road.
Yep. So something that I have forgotten to share too is that we've got Soteris who's going to be coming. Soteris owns a mobile fueler. So there's all kinds of different technologies. There's the battery electric chargers, like Erin was saying. There's fueling stations for 350 bar hydrogen, fueling stations for 700 bar hydrogen. Obviously, there's a station as we know it today that would be a fixed station that you're used to driving up to. But there are mobile stations, there are modular stations. All these new things are going to be helping our evolving industry as they adopt new energy sources. So Soteris will be there with their mobile fueler. That is a really cool thing to see. There's about 5 in Canada, and they'll have one of them at this event. We'll also have the hydrogen storage and dispensing trailers, one that is owned by AMTA, so you'll be able to see this technology that is new in supporting your industry. Rapid Response will be there with a great big trailer of equipment that they use if there's an on-site emergency with a spill or some kind of a response. So you'll even see how we're ensuring that if there is some kind of a safety issue, that we've taken care of that for the road users.
Just going to add, it's really exciting at the expo because we're going to have things that you can see, touch, and feel in real life. So we'll have the trucks and the supporting equipment. We'll have a fuel cell trailer available, so you can actually go see what is a fuel cell and chat with folks about that. We're really pretty excited about that.
And kicking off this event, a project that I know is near and dear to the hearts of Terri and Erin, even in your short time here so far, Erin. We are kicking off with the launch of the AceTech project. Can you provide some insight on that? That stands for Alberta Zero-Emission Truck Electrification Collaboration. Nailed it.
You got it, Kelsey. And the exciting thing about that is it's funded right here by Alberta, Emissions Reduction Alberta. So this started off as a $16 million project with which AMTA is receiving $7 million of funding. By this point in time, the project has actually grown to a $22 million project. And we are introducing the very first fuel cell electric vehicle, so zero emissions from the tailpipe. And the unique identifier about this vehicle is it pulls Canadian weights. So those of you who are into the vehicles and understand what's going on, you'll note that most fuel cell electric trucks and most battery electric trucks that are built today are hauling US weights at 82,500. The AceTech truck is 140,000, so you won't have to reduce your payloads at all. So that vehicle will be kicking off at the AceTech event and launching a 2-year trial in industry.
That's amazing. I know it's been a journey to get here, so it'll be nice to see that all come to fruition.
Yeah, it's exciting. They've been trialing on the test track in Quebec now for 6 to 8 months. So we've seen the vehicles operating. We know they're safe. They've gone through CVMSS. No. See, now I'm not Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety something. So CMVSS inspections and certifications. So interesting fun fact off to the side here is a lot of these equipment that we're working with at AMTA, example would be the tube trailer as well. We have to have those all certified to government standards. So we're working with government, getting the regulations and the certifications on these vehicles and this equipment as it's introduced to Canada, so that the carriers who are our ultimate project partner and who we're working for will have an easier time as they work with these technologies in the future.
So we have AceTech, we've mentioned fuel cell electric, we've mentioned battery electric, hydrogen. I know that the industry advancement team is busy with a lot of programs and initiatives. Erin, can you expand on a few of those other things that you guys are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this work actually took place before I arrived at AMTA, but I am quite familiar with some of the previous projects. So one of the key things that our team has done in Alberta through the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Demonstration Project is developed fuel cell grade hydrogen production in partnership with an oil and gas company in Alberta. And through that, we were able to use specialized equipment to get fuel cell grade hydrogen, which is 99.999% pure. So very pure hydrogen is required. We were able to get that done and use that hydrogen to fuel the demonstration vehicles that we've been wanting to test here. So that's been a big win. We've also done some hydrogen vehicle demonstrations where we lease out for 2 to 3 week periods hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen diesel dual fuel vehicles to carriers where they can take them and put them into their own operations to test the performance and see how well they do in their own real world operations in their own specific circumstances, which has been really useful. I think beyond just coming to a show or going for a ride and drive, to be able to take these trucks and actually put them into their operations has been really valuable.
And just like a little off to the side on what Erin's talking about, in October, we're going to have the Diesel Tech DTI hydrogen diesel dual fuel class 8 truck that carriers can trial. And we'll also have the Nikola fuel cell electric vehicle that carriers will be able to trial as part of the hydrogen vehicle demonstrations. So those of you who are at the expo, come and grab either Erin or myself or someone at the AMTA booth, and we'll be able to record your interest in getting involved in that leasing program.
So, Erin, we are recording towards the end of July here, and just yesterday we released a press release on the zero-emission truck test bed. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, aka ZET?
Yes, absolutely. That's a new project that we're very excited about. It's being done with funding from Transport Canada and in partnership with Deloitte. And what we're going to be doing is testing fuel cell electric trucks and battery electric trucks on long-haul routes. The hydrogen fuel cell trucks in Alberta will be traveling between Calgary and Edmonton, and the battery electric trucks will be traveling from Surrey, BC, down to Mount Vernon in Washington State. And one of the great things about this specific project is that we're going to be collecting real-world data during actual operations of these vehicles, doing real work and carrying loads. So I think it's going to be really useful data that we're collecting on the operation and performance and emissions of these vehicles in service.
And anything to add on your end, Terri?
Yeah, I guess this is one of the bigger projects that we've done, and it includes 4 different carriers that we're working with. So we're working with Sutco, we're working with Arrow, we're working with Bison, or we're working with Trimac on this trial. So kind of a challenge out there to other carriers that might be listening. If you're interested in being involved in an AMTA research and innovation project, we need to know that you have that interest in being involved, because we would really like to have you as part of a trial.
Erin and Terri, what do you see for the future of commercial transportation technology in Alberta?
So I think in Alberta, there's room for all different technologies, and it really depends on the different use case for a specific company. Hydrogen and battery electric vehicles both reduce emissions and are quite complementary. Battery electric is well suited for shorter ranges and return to base operations. Hydrogen performs really well for long-term or long-haul trucking. They're not necessarily competing with each other, but they are applicable to different use cases. So I think that's important to remember when we're thinking about the future applications of this technology. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, we really see those fleets of the future as being composed by a bunch of different technologies. I know your battery electric vehicles are really good for return to base. They're a little bit cheaper, so it's a good thing for a zero-emission vehicle. Erin already said the fuel cell electric vehicles, another zero-emission vehicle, is good for long haul and for Canadian weights and Canadian temperatures and climates. The hydrogen diesel dual fuel is another vehicle that we're looking at. Hydrogen diesel dual fuel is a reduction in emissions, but it really is applicable in Alberta, specifically to assets that are long life. So if you're taking a look at a bus or a coach bus that has a 25-year lifespan, you can put a relatively inexpensive hydrogen diesel dual fuel retrofit kit on the vehicle and receive significant emissions reductions. The same thing is happening with CNG. So we will have 2 CNG vehicles that are on site. So you can ask the fleets that are there why they've chosen these vehicles, why they're supporting this technology, what makes a hydrogen diesel dual fuel vehicle a better choice for that specific individual versus a CNG versus a fuel cell versus a battery electric. So we're really hoping that carriers that come out of this event are just going to be swimming with new information. If you have questions, write them down in advance so that you can make sure you target them. we've got a little map, like a Disneyland map written up, where we have hydrogen section and a battery electric section and a diesel dual fuel section. And then we've even got a little CNG section, just everything so that you can go in there and become informed on things you're not sure you know about, or challenge individuals that are there with things that you've heard about these technologies and you want further clarification on.
So it really sounds like an all-encompassing event for the future of alternative fuels in the province. So I'm gonna segue to our close here, but Terri, is there anything else you'd like to add in regards to the expo or what industry advancement's working on in general?
Yeah, we'll focus on the expo right now. Carrier members are who we are really targeting. If you are a carrier member, you will never again have an opportunity like this to see all these technologies in one space at one time on one day. It's worth taking time out of your business schedule to come down and take a look at these trucks and to take a look at the ecosystem that's supporting each of these vehicles and alternative energy sources. As far as other attendees, we're working with municipalities. A lot of municipalities are looking at integrating these vehicles into their fleets. Industry associations, I know BCTA, Saskatchewan Trucking Association, Manitoba Trucking Association, Trucking HR Canada, Transport Canada, all of these organizations will be there, so it'll have a provincial and federal reach. A lot of government will be there because we're doing a lot with regards to regulatory advancement, looking at licensing, permitting, and policies. And then we've got a unique group of individuals that'll be coming as first responders. And those first responders will have a one-stop shop opportunity on that day to take a look at all the different vehicle technologies.
Amazing. Thank you, Terri. And Erin, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on my very first podcast. That was a great recap of the expo that Terri just gave. And I would just add that we're really excited to see everybody out at the expo on September 26th. So if you haven't registered yet to attend, please do so. And we're so excited to see you there.
And for our listeners, we will have details on that event in our show notes, and as well, keep your eyes peeled to amta.ca or our social media channels. Erin, you nailed it. Terri, thank you for joining us once again. You guys are welcome anytime. We really appreciate your time and outlook on the future of industry, as well as the Industry Innovations EXPO coming up on September 26th. We will now throw to Rob Destree for our latest Best Big Rig Movie Ever bracket segment. Rob.
Thanks, Kelsey. So looks like we're back for another big rig movie bracket challenge. What say you?
We are, Rob. Today we are going to do Maximum Overdrive from 1986 and The Wizard from 1989.
All right. What are your thoughts on Maximum Overdrive?
Maximum Overdrive. Earth is caught in the tail of a comet for 8 days and carnage ensues, including big rigs and all machines rebelling.
I think it's important to note that Maximum Overdrive was Stephen King's first and only attempt at directing a movie, and during the entire time, he was consuming quite a lot of, shall we say, rocket fuel, to the point where he has no recollection of it, which, if I was Stephen King, I would want no recollection of this movie either, to be honest. It's some of Emilio Estevez's best work. I'll give him that.
I loved it. Maybe it's like a cult kind of film thing or an underground kind of film thing, but I dug it. I realized that Steven might have been on some things, but he went there, and it is bizarre and it is very King. I come from the cult of King, so I'm here for this.
Fair enough. I mean, it was his directorial debut. It kind of shows. It's fairly uneven in spots. The machines taking over, interesting concept, except for a couple of machines that were convenient for plot advancement, like the car of the newlyweds never got taken over. And I struggle with things like that. It's going to take over all the machines, except the ones that move the plot forward. So I struggle with that, to be honest.
From a big rig perspective, the trucks do turn against us. They do use communication very well when they need fuel, and they politely line up. So from a safety standpoint, doesn't apply, but there are a lot of variety of big rigs and commercial vehicles in this one, which makes it pretty fun. They must have had quite a time on the set.
Yeah, and there's a lot of classic trucks, right? Like, I mean, the clown-faced truck is iconic for us that grew up in that era.
Happy Toys.
Yes. Yeah, the Bic truck that got annihilated. I thought that was kind of interesting that Bic would have had their logo on something evil, shall we say?
You mentioned kind of some of Emilio's best work. This was released a year after The Breakfast Club, so he did go on quite a run in the 80s there when he was part of that Brat Pack.
I wonder if it was one of those ones where, and I would have to check because I don't know for sure if it got filmed beforehand and released after because of popularity, or was he just riding the wave of Breakfast Club popularity, and Stephen King comes along like, yeah, we'll make a movie, and he's like, I'm all in. I don't know what the timeline on it was.
There's a couple fun facts with this one too. The newlyweds that you mentioned with the one car that doesn't seem to turn on everybody, the wife was Yardley Smith, the voice
Good
of
old
Lisa
Yardley
Simpson.
Smith.
And I really dug that the music mimed Psycho. It was like Psycho's 80s synth.
Plus that soundtrack that features 9 out of the 11 songs by none other than AC/DC. So it's a pretty headbanging kind of soundtrack.
The whole Yardley Smith thing, I'm like, that's Lisa Simpson, and I cannot unsee Lisa Simpson every time she talks.
Lots of cameo roles in that kind of era for Smith.
Yeah, well, she hadn't had the Simpsons fame yet, I don't think, at that point. She was 22. She's super young, yeah. And again, King being his directorial debut, put them into some situations which were less than ideal from a safety perspective, shall we say. The scene where they crash into the cafe, she almost got taken out, I think. So you go from that at the age of 22 to now making, what does she make per episode for Lisa Simpson?
Probably more than I do.
$350,000 an episode, I think.
So she's doing okay.
I think she's not eating macaroni and cheese every second meal.
Unless she wants to.
Unless she wants to, yeah. $300,000 per episode.
So, Rob, how many CB radios out of 5 for Maximum Overdrive?
2.5. I'll go 2.5 on this bad boy.
I'm being bold. I'm going 3.5. I enjoyed this.
Oh, fair
This
enough.
is the kind of movie that I would dig out and just watch once a year, eating a bunch of potato chips.
I fully understand that. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, now on to the Wizard, Kelsey. I know we're going to have
Now,
different
folks,
opinions
we
on
are
this
going to
one.
have a bit of a debate with this one, but we will start with what this film is about if you've not seen it. With a whopping 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, The Wizard is. After busting his little brother Jimmy out of an institution, Corey discovers Jimmy is a mastermind at video games. Picking up the roadwise Haley, the trio hitchhike their way to California to try and win 50 grand at Video Armageddon. Rob, what do you think of The Wizard?
I am going to say it's not a trucking movie, and I know you're going to disagree with me on that. The female protagonist, what was her name again?
Haley.
Haley. Her father was a truck driver. Got mentioned several times. Okay. No trucks showed up until 1:08 into the movie for about a 1.5-minute scene. So, and then I'm pretty sure that the auto car truck that the big guy that drove them to the game convention was probably the same one as an Over the Top. Pretty sure they just had that truck parked in the back lot. Like, yeah, let's drag this thing out and throw it into another movie. It's some of Fred Savage's best work, I guess.
I will give you that it is not as truck driver centered as our other films, but I will also give you this is one of the movies that was my go-tos as a kid. If it was ever on the 3 channels that we had, we were watching it. And it was kind of my first exposure to what truck drivers could mean to the motoring public and to people who need help, knowing that they are there to serve a purpose, right? They're there to help. We don't see that enough on the roads anymore, how drivers are out there helping. And this film just kind of really pays an homage to that. It might not be as truck driver centered. It might not have Chuck Norris in it, but it is, I think it falls in that realm just because it really shows how truck drivers are willing to step up when needed.
Fair points.
So riddle me that.
I will give some credit to as well Christian Slater. That was Christian Slater riding his popularity as well. I've always liked Christian Slater as an actor. Beau Bridges, surprisingly
A young Beau
athletic.
Bridges?
A young Beau Bridges, surprisingly athletic in the movie, although somewhat psychotic with his little S10 ramming into the bad guy's car. Wow, I guess it wasn't really the bad guy, it's just a creepy bounty hunter child.
And for the
Quasi.
80s babies nerds out there, it included the premiere of Super Mario Bros. 3 on the Nintendo system.
Yeah, that was one of the other things I wanted to see on the credits, produced by Nintendo, because it's pretty heavily Nintendo-y at the end. I mean, you had the good-looking thuggy villain, teen, angsty, whatever. Yeah, to me, it's not really a truck driving movie. I'm going to give it 2.
I'm going to give it 4. 4 CB radios out of 5 and 3 Fred Savages out of 5 because Fred gets all of his due with Princess Bride.
Okay, well, I'm going to give it 4 Christian Slaters out of 5 then.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Was he Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves?
Yeah, he's Will Scarlet.
It's been a lot of years since I've seen Prince of Thieves, so maybe we need to do a swashbuckling movie bracket at some point.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Steering Change podcast listeners, where do you think these movies rank? Do they rank? Do you have other suggestions for us? Let us know on our socials, Kelsey.
Those socials that Rob mentioned are X, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll have these movies pitted against each other for you to vote. Feel free to comment as well. We've had some great comments from folks on films and bringing up film memories, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right, until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change Podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change Podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Do you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change Podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change Mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag Steering Change, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.